Welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Jennifer Bryan. I'm the program manager for the Greater Washington Center for Employee Ownership, which is a project of the Washington Area Community Investment Fund. Really excited to welcome you today to our event, Ensuring Your Legacy Through Employee Ownership. We're very excited to collaborate with Project Equity and to have our special guest speaker, Carolyn Burke, who is with Niles Pie Company, and she's going to be sharing about her conversion experience. So thank you for those that are joining live and those who are watching the webinar recording. And with that, I will turn it over to Donna Sky from Project Equity.
Hello, and thank you, Jennifer. I am just going to share my screen now. Let me see here, share screen. I will share this. Okay, let's see. Oops, looks like I got my whole screen here. So let's see. Okay, yes. So hi, everyone. Let's just make sure I can move through. My name is Donna Sky, and I work with Project Equity. Project Equity is a nonprofit organization that supports business owners transition to employee ownership. And we do that with existing companies. We help owners sell their businesses to their employees via an employee buyout. We provide some funding to help make that happen, and we provide some hands-on technical assistance to do to walk business owners through that process and to do some pretty in-depth work along the way. And I'll get into the details of that a little bit further in on the webinar. I myself am a former business owner or current business owner as well for about 10 years. So supporting business owners is something that's really important to me professionally in my work at Project Equity, and then of course, just personally. So I'm really excited to be working with GWCO and with Jennifer today to share some information about why we think employee ownership is something that a lot of business owners should know about. So we have a great agenda for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about why employee ownership matters and a little bit about the different types of employee ownership. We'll also do a little myth debunking, some of the common things that I'll hear. I'm usually a first point of contact here at Project Equity, talking to business owners as they're considering this option and exploring if it's a good fit for them. And we'll also talk about how an employee buyout works. And we'll bring in Carolyn Burke, who so generously is giving us her time today. She's the founder of a business who transitioned to employee ownership. Carolyn, if you want to give a wave so folks can see you, that'd be great. And then we'll talk a bit about the readiness factors. So for employee ownership, we believe, it can work for most businesses, but just sort of determining when the time might be right for your business is important to consider. So before we jump into the meat, we thought we'd get started with a quiz to go over these myths that are really common that we hear. So in essence, before we get started with that too, I'd love to kind of just hear where folks are currently in terms of their knowledge of employee ownership. So if you want to just sort of think, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say your knowledge, make sure your knowledge of employee ownership is? And sorry about that. You could just write that in the chat, and I will trust, Jennifer to let me know if folks are starting to comment there. And as well, this is a little bit of a housekeeping tip too. if you have some questions, we will have designated time for Q&A, but if you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to pop those in the question tab for Zoom or the chat. So let's get started. First question here. Oops, let's see. So what is employee ownership? So do we have any volunteers to describe what we mean when we say the term, what is employee ownership? If you can write it in the chat, you can think about it to yourself, but ask yourself, you know, how would you define employee ownership? All right, going once, going twice. Do we have any comments in there, Jennifer, that anybody typed up? If not, I'm ready to jump in and answer that.
We don't have any comments yet, but you know, for the recording, I think that it's something that folks who are watching this later can reflect on to themselves.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, yeah, just think about, what do you already have? What are your sort of thoughts about employee ownership already, right? So the way, when we talk about employee ownership, we talk about it in the form of, it's a business structure where the people who work in the company also own it. So people who are actually working in the business in real time, they are also owners of the business. They share in the ownership of the business. And that's in terms of having a say in some governance decisions, as well as being able to share in the profit that company generates. So first question on the quiz, question number 1, true or false? Selling to employees requires accepting a lower selling price. I'll give you a moment. I know it's being recorded, so I won't have too much time here. You could press pause if you're watching this recording. So the answer to that is false. So for business owners, you know, selling to their employees a market rate price established by debt capacity is what is set up. It's the market rate price, and it's established through debt capacity, and debt capacity is determined through free cash flow. So does the business, or does your business, have free cash flow and the ability to pay off any debt that would be taken out to buy the business from you? And we'll get into that a little more as we go further down, but basically it's, again, debt capacity is the company's ability to pay off financing or the debt that is taken out for your company and your employees to buy the business from you. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to put those in the chat. So question number 2. Say true or false. My employees are going to have to foot the bill. So we talked about this debt capacity, right? So will your individual employees have to foot the bill to buy the business from you? Or do your employees have to have the money to buy the business from you? You can press pause again. And now I'm going to go to the answer. So it's false. So your employees are not obligated to finance the transaction. And usually it's completed through a leveraged buyout. So back to the debt capacity analysis, you know, when establishing a potential sale price, it's based on the company's free cash flow and its ability to pay off the debt. So your individual employees do not have to have the cash to buy the business from you. There is, however, a piece where often employees, especially if they're transitioning to a model like a co-op, there will be a buy-in that can be set and established based on an amount that, you know, is significant for the employees, but something that is accessible. So for some companies, what that might look like is, you know, that employee buy-in amount it might be something that each individual employee may not have the money or the cash already readily available in the bank to pay it in one lump sum. So some businesses set that up where they can pay off that employee buy-in over a period of time, perhaps a year or 2 years. But it's something that is accessible and reachable based on the workforce. So question number 3, true or false? Owners can remain involved in strategic decisions after they sell. Now, this is something that comes up a lot. So think about the answer, true or false. Many business owners who are considering employee ownership are very mission driven, really care a lot about their business. So there's a question again that, as I said, comes up a lot. So press pause if you don't want the answer yet, but I'm gonna go there. So it is true. So selling owners have many options to stay involved in your business. So after the transaction or the transition to employee owned, there's a variety of ways that the founders or selling owner can stay involved. Some owners choose to stay on as one of several employee owners after the transition. Some owners decide to retire and no longer be involved in the operations of the business. And some owners stay in their current role, or their role may change. I talked to a business owner the other day where they were interested in staying involved, but they wanted to shift their priorities more towards the creative side and the design side of the business. And a new general manager was hired in their place. Question number 4, true or false? All employees will be managing the business equally. Okay, this is also another question that comes up that I'm excited to answer for you all today, and that is false. So management would be in place to ensure robust operational structure. So, transitioning to employee ownership, in that it's really important to not to lose the secret sauce of your business. If your business is successful and the management structure that was set up to help that company or your company be successful, that would continue. And in employee ownership, there is a difference between governance and management. So management is the day-to-day operations of the business, and that would continue to be in place. Okay, so thank you all for participating. So I'd like to sort of shift and talk about why employee ownership matters and why the time is now to really kind of think about employee ownership. So as all of you know, as business owners, there's a lot of challenges that are facing you today. Some of the top challenges that we hear about is there's this twin crisis going on. So, there's a national silver tsunami happening, which means that, many of the businesses that are owned today, over half of privately owned businesses, as a matter of fact, are owned by baby boomers. And as these baby boomers start to think about retirement, there may be more businesses for sale than there are buyers. So, only about 1 in 5 businesses actually sell, and that can have tremendous impact on local communities. It can impact, the jobs for employees of those businesses, the local tax bases, as well as, having these business services in our communities. Many communities rely on these businesses for their services. So, understanding that, again, there's this transition that's going to be happening as the baby boomers retiring and the tremendous impact it can have. And, as I alluded to, selling a business isn't easy, right? I'm based in the Bay Area, but it's the same is true nationally. You know, we often read about these unicorns. You'll hear about those businesses that sell for millions and even billions of dollars. But the truth of the matter is that for a lot of businesses, it's not that easy. So only about 1 in 5 businesses sell, or 20% of businesses will actually complete a sale. As well, family transitions are becoming less common. So about 15% of businesses will transition to family. And because of that, large percent of businesses are at risk of closing. So we believe that employee ownership can really help address a lot of the challenges that business owners are facing when they consider their succession options. And what we found is that employee ownership can check a lot of the boxes in regards to consideration that business owners are thinking about. For one, employee ownership helps to create stronger businesses. So this has been seen again and again in businesses across the country and in different industries that profit margin tends to be higher in employee-owned businesses in comparison to their peers in the same industry. As well, there's a higher growth rate of employee-owned companies, and that benefit is something that happens year over year. So not just a one-time benefit. Year over year, employee-owned companies have a 2% higher sales and hiring growth rate. As well, employee ownership can be tremendously beneficial for the selling owner. Owners can achieve a fair sale price. There's also this opportunity to retain influence and have a say in the timeline. Sometimes I'll talk to business owners and, they'd like to transition a little quicker, and some of them would like to slowly phase out. So it can, as an owner who has grown this business, we know that it's very important to you. So being able to retain influence on the pacing and the exit timeline, and getting to contribute in the legacy of the business moving forward is something that is possible and often happens with transitions like this. And the other thing is being able to preserve the legacy, the culture, the company that you've built and put so much of yourself into in the long term is also, can be very rewarding for owners. So how do these buyouts work? So in essence, in a really sort of high level, there's a lot of nuances there. And, I'll take a moment to sort of pause here. Each business is unique. And, we have this saying in Project Equity, when you've seen one small business, you've seen one small business. And that's to say, you're all unique. But at a very high level, the way it works is that, you as a business owner would sell your company to your employees, okay? But what would happen is the company itself, not the individual employees, but the company itself would take out some debt to buy the company from you. And then the business, through future free cash flow, would pay back that debt from the profits over time. Okay, so you can rewind that, or you can set up an appointment. I'll be available for some drop-in appointments, and you'll have my email at the end to go into that deeper. But at a high level, that's how it works. So with that, very excited to bring in our featured employee-owned business owner and founder, Carolyn Burke from Niles Pie. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hi. Hi.
So Carolyn, thank you for joining us today. I guess we'll jump right in. What I'd love to ask you for your first question is, can you tell us a little bit about Niles Pie and why your company was and you were interested in turning Niles Pie into a co-op?
Sure. Well, we are a small retail pie company in the Bay Area in California, in Union City. And we have been a company since 2010 and became a cooperative employee-owned in 2017. And I think it's still 2021. So it's been about 4 years now. We are, our revenue is about $500,000 a year. And up until 2020, up until COVID, we were growing significantly every year. And we're back on track again, which is lovely. We vary between 8 and 12 employees. We can get into it later, but we did not lose any employees during the pandemic. And it was a pretty hard year, as it was for everybody, and continues to be. But I definitely think that becoming a cooperative is what made us successful in getting through the pandemic as well as we have. But about the business itself, when we started in 2010, it was literally just me and an occasional intern or neighbor who would jump in and help. And it was completely online, took orders, worked out of rented kitchen space, and delivered twice a week to various drop-off locations around our neck of the Bay Area. And we moved into retail space in 2013. And by about 2015, started thinking about employee ownership as an exit plan. I really had no intention of leaving the business anytime soon, but I really feel it's important as a business owner to have an exit plan. It's good for your own mental health. And I also know that I'm not going to live forever. So I really wanted to make sure that this business could stand on its own and wasn't based on me. Regardless of whether or not I was planning on leaving, I knew that I was going to need my life to be more flexible as I grew older, as my family's needs changed. So we started talking about it as a group of employees and management in about 2015, started the process. 2016, worked with Project Equity. We were one of their first cohorts to move through their process, and formally became a co-op in July of 2017. And I am still part of the business. I work part-time, and I actually don't live in the Bay Area anymore. I'm not in the kitchen at all. And I'm just really at a high level and help with strategic planning, budgeting. I do help with bookkeeping and tax issues and those kinds of things. But it has been a long curve and process, and it's been great. I have to say, it hasn't been without its bumps, certainly. But every business has bumps. I mean, that's sort of the you're never going to get away from that. But as to why, I have a story that I tell people about really why I wanted to make sure I had an exit plan. Many business owners are sort of multiple business owners and sort of serial entrepreneurs, and that is my case as well. And my first bakery business was back in the 90s on the East Coast, and I started a bakery and owned a bakery. I was very, very young and naive, and also had a ton of energy and worked myself silly. I owned the business for 5 years. I started it. It was successful, much smaller than Niles Pie, but really it was a good business, but it was completely based on my sweat equity. I mean, I worked, 6 and 7 days a week. A typical work day was anywhere from 10 to 15 hours, and double during holidays, and when I got to a point, I was young and I got married and had a kid and was very, I really couldn't manage the business by myself anymore. And really the only option I had, because of the way I had structured the business, was to sell it. Because I didn't have an exit plan. I didn't have anybody I had brought up through the business to run the business, to really manage it, and to continue it. So I was lucky enough to be able to sell it, pretty much for, just to get enough to exit and pay off debt. But within a year, the business was gone. So everything that I had built towards, because I had to take the first seller or the first buyer, because I didn't have a plan. So everything that I had worked so hard for 5 years, which isn't very long in the life of a business, really, just vanished. And I told myself, when I started Niles Pie, that was not, if I was going to work that hard, I wanted something to show for it. I wanted to either sell it for enough to retire comfortably, or leave a legacy, or both, preferably. And so when we started the business, it was with an eye that it was not going to be based on my physical labor, for the next 30 years. So certainly the first couple of years it was, definitely, but I really focused on developing the folks who worked at Niles Pie, to feel a sense of ownership and to build a culture before we even got to the point of discussion in the first place. So that was my cautionary tale that's always been in the back of my head, was, what is the exit plan? You should always have an exit plan, one way or the other, be it employee ownership or a way that you can stay in your business, but not manage it and not run it, not having it be part of your daily life, but building that legacy and keeping it in the community, keeping, now the people who own Niles Pie Company live in the community, and the money that is generated by our business stays in the neighborhood. And it's good for the business, it's good for the employees, and it's good for the community. So that's always my as we're recruiting new members, that's one of my big things, is that not only is it good for employees personally to be owners, but it really solidifies them in their community. So that's always a big thing. So that was the long answer to your question.
Excellent.
I can talk forever.
Well, it was packed with important information, so thank you. That was great. Exactly what I had asked. So I heard you say, having a exit option was really important to you, or thinking about your succession plan, really, for yourself, and advice to all business owners to consider what their succession plan will be.
Yeah.
When you decided that employee ownership was the path for you in thinking about succession planning and what was next for Niles Pie, you chose a co-op for your company. Can you tell me a little bit why, and why a co-op was the right fit for your business?
Sure. Well, among the choices out there for employee ownership, a worker cooperative for our size company really made the most sense. We're small. our revenue is relatively small. So it is probably the least expensive, most sort of DIY kind of solution for us. And it's a very, I could visualize it, you know, more than like an ESOP, which an ESOP is a more complex ownership structure. And it makes more sense for a larger business with more employees, I think. And we could, I think being a worker cooperative in some ways takes a little more training and discussion amongst the business itself, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, about what it means and also what it can be. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to be a worker co-op. And that was a lot of our initial conversation with our staff when we became a co-op was, what does that mean to the business? What does this mean to my job? And how is that going to change? And the answer was really, it doesn't change. We didn't change our management structure at all. And that was important. Because at the time I basically just changed, we were a sole proprietorship and we became an LLC. And I became the general manager rather than just being, you know, as a sole proprietorship, basically like, you know, the God in charge. So it gave us an opportunity actually to have a formal management structure, which of course any business should have in the first place. So I think it provided us a lot of opportunity for training and flexibility in terms of our business structure and what we wanted to do going forward.
Okay, excellent. And since you've transitioned, have you noticed any impact so far on the company's financial performance or for the employee owners, engagement, performance, satisfaction, anything in that line?
Absolutely. I mean, it's had a positive impact both financially on the business and on our worker owners. And it's lent us a real strength. I mean, I don't know, really, it's hard for me to picture how things would have happened with COVID and the pandemic without having what really became our management strength behind us in the cooperative. And so really to put some solid information behind that, our first year, we were able to distribute profits to our owners that was the equivalent of it's like $5.50 an hour, which as a small retail bakery, $5.50 an hour is a lot of money. It made the difference. One of our owners is a single mom. You know, she was able to really put some money aside for her kid, for, you know, really helping out with her car, and another of our owners helps raise his nephew. And it really, I think for small retail businesses, particularly, at least this is what our experience has been, is that it's a low wage industry, but it's also, as we have certainly learned as a country through COVID, many of us have known this all along, but it's really the backbone of employment in this country in a lot of ways. The service industries and businesses, small businesses in particular, they're really run and fueled by people who don't make a lot of money. So really having that extra wage at the end of the year, not only financially, it can have a very big impact on people's lives, but it also leads to a lot of stability in the community. People don't pick up and leave. So that's been, I think that's been really huge. We've had very little turnover. Also for the business itself, I did not plan on leaving. I wanted to change. I wanted to bring up more management to ease the burden on me, and to generally make staff more engaged. And I think that happens. We can go into this more, however much in depth you want, but the more our employees and staff understood the workings of the business financially, and really specifically their roles in the business over time, that just automatically gives people a sense of ownership. So regardless, we're not 100% employee owned, and I doubt we ever will be, but we're more than 50% employee owned at this point, or will be soon. And we train all of our staff. We do finance trainings every month, and we share a high level of our finances with all staff, so that they really understand sort of the value of a pie, and really what their labor contributes specifically to that cost. You have a $25, I love doing pie charts. And so we do the $25, what little slice of that they contributed. What's the profit and what did they generate? We get down to that level of detail for people, and really help them understand exactly the costs, and the revenue and the expense. I think that our staff have a much stronger understanding of the finance of the business, which then gives them a stronger understanding of the management of the business. They're not just clocking in and peeling a bunch of apples and going home. They're really understanding what they contribute, and that lends to longevity in the business. People don't leave as quickly. We do have turnover, but not like we used to, and not like most retail businesses. So it really helped us pivot during the pandemic. We couldn't have seating anymore. We wanted fewer people coming in the shop. We got our website up and running really fast. We just turned on a dime. We changed our revenue stream from, half of our revenue was from farmers markets. That just completely dried up. We pivoted around to deliveries. We just were really able to change how we did business really quickly, and not just once, but continuously throughout the pandemic, and continuing to right now. And we constantly are having to pivot and move. And as a business owner, that really could be, it's one of the biggest fears. Like, how do you manage a business? The owner is indispensable to the business, because they're the ones who understand how to change that quickly. And it's so much easier to do something yourself than to explain it to everybody. But if you, in our case, we worked really hard to train everybody and keep everybody in the loop, so that as we, as the needs change, your staff already know what's going on. The people who are in the front of the house and the people who are there every day, every moment, really understand what needs to happen. Sometimes they don't have the big picture. So if you can get that as part of the management and part of your training, then that's what really helped us and continues to help us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Carolyn, this was so helpful today. Thank you for answering these questions and sharing your story. And I will give a plug, if people have not been to Niles Pie, if you do make it to the Bay Area. I know this is centered in the Washington, D.C. area, but the food is fantastic. They make these, they're Pop-Tarts, but No, the Pop-Tarts you buy in the store don't have the right to call themselves Pop-Tarts after tasting what Niles Pie makes. They're just simply fantastic. And of course, the employee owners there that I've had the privilege of meeting are just so passionate about the work they do, and so are you. So thank you for joining us today. So if you can, I'd like to ask you to stay on for the Q&A portion. There's just a few more slides we'd like to get through, and then we'll get to the live Q&A today. So thank you. I am going to share my screen again.
Donna, while you're pulling up your screen, I just had one question for Carolyn before we go to the Q&A and you share your final slides. A common question that I get is, what is the process for a new employee to become a worker owner? And this varies in businesses, but what is the process like at Niles Pie?
Sure. At Niles Pie, we have a buy-in, and employees have to have worked for the company for 9 months, and it's considered sort of the training period and the get to know you period. Do we want? We really want to make sure that that the people who become owners, we want them to become owners, and that they're a good fit. So we do have a 9-month period, and we have a $1,500 buy-in that we've lowered over time. We started off at $2,500 and dropped it because we don't want it to be a barrier, but we want it to be enough so that people feel that they have some skin in the game. So there is a buy-in which people can pay through payroll deductions, or if they want to pay all at once. So during that 9-month period, they're learning, their actual job, right? But they're also learning about the business itself. And primarily we do that through finance training, because I strongly feel that really leads into understanding all of the rest of the nuts and bolts of the business. So everything has a line item on the P&L or the balance sheet, and to understand that and have a working knowledge of that really leads people to understand where they fit in the company. But also, I would say too that there are different levels of involvement in that aspect of the business that people want. Some people really don't want anything to do with that. And they don't really have to, because they're not necessarily becoming management. Everybody's jobs still stay the same. They just are owners and share in the profits and have a role in the governance, which is sort of the big decisions. So yeah, I mean, it's a 9-month process. And then the board will vote, and we need just a majority vote for folks to become owners. And that's our process. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you for sharing that, Carolyn. And the process does differ based on the cooperative, and it's something that each cooperative can determine what their process will be.
Right.
And I'll turn it back over to you, Donna.
Excellent. Okay, so I will share my screen again here. Let's see. Well, you know what? I don't, I think it's okay. I can sort of verbally, well, sorry. Here we go. Share screen. Okay, we're going to share this tab, share. Okay, and I will present. Okay. So in closing, I'd like to just talk a little bit about readiness factors. I know I touched on that briefly early on, but I'd like to go through those again. Each business is unique, and these readiness factors that I'm going to share are for existing companies and business owners that would like to transition their business to employee-owned via an employee buyout. And we support companies doing that through leveraged buyout. So this model works for existing companies they'll sort of meet these readiness factors. Now, however, there are companies that can start as employee owned. And if Jennifer, if you have a company or you have an idea for business and you'd like to start it as a co-op, I'm sure there are local organizations in Washington that Jennifer may be able to tell you about. There's also national organizations that can help with startups, but this is specific for existing business owners who'd like to sell their business to their employees and transition to employee owned. So to do that, a readiness factor that's really important is the financial health of the company. So something that we look at is the company profitable? We'll look at historical performance, and we also model out future projections and look at the health and the free cash flow. Because the company in these kind of transitions are leveraged buyout, there needs to be profit and free cash flow to pay off the debt that's taken out to buy the business from the selling owner. Another important readiness factor to consider is your management bench. So are there experienced employees in-house? Is there a strong team in place that can help operationalize, the company, once it becomes employee owned, to manage this company to continue to be successful into the future? And if there's not, what are the key hires that would need to be made to help the company continue to manage and operate on a day-to-day basis? And then as well, in addition to the profitability, is there a proven track record? Has your business been around for a few years? Do you have a record of being profitable, not just profitable, but successful? Do you have a good customer base? And are you poised to continue to be so into the future? So again, what I would invite all of you is to, kind of think about, does my business have these, or am I there yet? Do we meet these readiness factors? And then I would invite you to, set up a consultation call, speak with Jennifer. You can also have a call directly with me to kind of check in on where your business is at now. And even if it's not quite ready now, as Carolyn had mentioned, start to think about your succession planning in the long term. There are ways to sort of, just have these, if you want to go the employee ownership route, have these kind of readiness factors in mind to build upon to get you where you want to go in the future. So with that, it looks like we're getting close to time, and I want to make sure there's a few moments for Q&A. So what I'd like to do is bring Jennifer back in to talk about sort of next steps if you'd like to know more, and then we'll transition to the live Q&A, which we will take the recording off for that, so you all feel comfortable to ask whatever questions you want, but we'll still have this live recording to share with everyone. So Jennifer?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Donna. So as you can see on the screen, we are going to have a follow-up to this call where we're going to have drop-in office hours for a free consultation with Donna Sky from Project Equity, our presenter today. That is going to be on Wednesday, October 6th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the follow-up email that we're going to send out after this webinar, we will share the sign-up link. You can also sign up by going to gwceo.wacif.org. That's gwceo.wacif.org, and click on the intake form, and we will get you signed up for the office hours. I want to give a big thank you to Carolyn Burke from Niles Pie for sharing her employee ownership transition experience with us today. It was really excellent to hear about how your conversion was able to really build up the community that your business is located in and how your employees are still there. I think that's very awesome. And just to see the legacy building that you're doing through this business that you created is really beautiful. And I think it'll be inspiring for the business owners that are watching here today. And so with that, we will go into the Q&A, and I am going to stop the recording. Thank you all for joining us either live or virtually through the recording, and make sure that you check out the Greater Washington Center for Employee Ownership website. Thank you. Have a great day.